The Vengeful Luna. Previous episodes are available on the playlist. You can also visit our website for your favorite stories. A link is provided in the video description. Episode 2. Abby Gannon sighs heavily. I'm sorry. I just want to be the one to do it. Okay, I won't ask Azalea, I tell him, and he lets out a breath. But you still aren't sure you want to be a Leakin, Gannon says. No. I was gonna ask if we could do it tomorrow and not when we got back home, I tell him, rubbing my temples. Wait. You will do it? Gannon asks. I look up at him to see his shocked face. It's true, I had been unsure, even amid the multiple times he asked me. The answer was always no. But in the last day or so, I've been feeling a change of heart. I could be with Azalea, and I had Gannon. I love Gannon, but I also worried he would get bored of me since I am not even sure I can be with anyone that way. At least not yet anyway, but would he still want me as my broken, damaged self? Yes, I will let you change me, but do we have to know? We don't, Abby, but you know it would eventually send you into heat with me marking you. Azalea changing you won't, neither would Kyson because he has a mate, but I don't have a mate. So I wouldn't just be changing you. I would be claiming you. I gulp at his words. I just want to be clear on that. You will go into heat eventually, Gannon says. I swallow and nod. I know, I want a little bit more time. And you have all the time you want, and we don't have to do it tomorrow. I just ask that if you are going to become a Leakin. When you choose that, I just hope you choose me to do it. Okay. But we can tomorrow, I just want to check on Azalea first. Do you think she is awake? I wouldn't mind ringing her too since it will be too late to see her by the time we get home. You can try her on my phone, Gannon says, handing his phone to me. I take it from him, and he tells me the pin to get in it. You know how to ring her? I nod. I had plenty of practice, but when I notice the time, I decide to send a voice text since I can't write. Usually Gannon types for me. I open up the messages, only when I do I see a picture message from a thread he was in. I gasp at the mutilated body of a woman, and Gannon looks at me. He glances down at the screen before trying to snatch the phone. I thought you were ringing Azalea, he growls, trying to reach for his phone. Why is Blair on your phone? I ask, staring down, horrified at the screen. Why? I had no doubt it was her. I would recognize her face anywhere, it haunts my dreams, and I always wondered what happened to her. I hoped she got free of the pack, but here she is dead on his phone screen. Yet as I scroll through the photos, I begin to feel sick. Blair? Gannon asks. Pull over. I am going to be sick, I tell him, and he rips the car to the side of the road. I toss the door open, throwing up, and empty my stomach. Seeing her mutilated body makes me sick, dry heaving until nothing but bile remains. Gannon races around the car, snatching the phone from my hand and pocketing it. He goes to grab me, but I take a step away and stand up. Did you kill her? I ask, horrified, wondering why he would send that to Liam. What? No, he says, stepping toward me, but I take another step back. Abby! Why is she on your phone? I demand, and his brows pinch. Ganon pulls his phone out and looks at the screen. You know this girl? Yes. Her name is Blair. She was one of Cade's girls. Now answer me. Did you kill her? I demand. No. Of course not. She was one of the bodies we found. I sent it to Liam so he could forward them to the packs so we could try to identify her. Wait, she is from Cade's pack, he asks. Yes, I just said that. She was one of the rogues there. She worked in the brothel, I tell him. Ganon looks at his screen again and flicks through the pictures. He takes a deep breath and shakes his head. What? I ask him, feeling my legs shaking. We found a nurse not far from Blair but in the opposite direction as the day after we got you back. She washed down the river at the back of the castle. You want me to look? You think they are linked? I ask, taking a step forward. Just let me zoom in on her face. I don't want you seeing the rest, Ganon tells me. I nod, already wishing I could unsee Blair's body. He turns the screen to show me, and I stumble back, clutching my mouth, tears brim in my eyes. You know her? He asks. She is the nurse who helped me escape. She undid my handcuffs, I tell him, and I choke on a whimper. Ganon comes over, wrapping his arms around me, and he kisses my hair. I'm sorry, love, he whispers, and I clutch the front of his shirt. He rubs my arms before pulling away from me. We need to get back. I need to speak to the king and Damien about this, he says, and I sniffle but climb back in the car, and he shuts my door. He gets back in the driver's seat before reaching over and grabbing a blanket, a water bottle, and some mints. Ganon puts the blanket over me, and I shakily open the water bottle, gulping it down. He turns the heater up, which helps with my shaking against the cool night air. Or maybe it was my shock because he was still in a shirt and didn't look cold. Come on, let's get you home, Ganon whispers, pulling back onto the road. Azalea, I wake up to Kyson's leg draped across my waist, and I try to push him off. I push at his shoulders when I suddenly stop, everything coming back to me yet I feel no pain. Kyson moves, lifting his head and yawning, covering his mouth with his hand before rubbing his eyes. I stare up at him, waiting for him to explain what happened after the council came here, but he clearly has other intentions as he leans down, kissing me. His tongue invades my mouth and I push him away, making him growl, and he hits me with his calling, urging me to submit to him. Is Abby back? What happened with the council? Cassandra? How long have I been asleep? I ask around his lips which are assaulting mine. He doesn't answer, too preoccupied with mauling me. Kyson! I growl, grabbing his head. Abby is back, has been for a day now. Council sorted and Cassandra is in the basement, he mutters nonchalantly, while collecting my wrists in one of his hands. He shoves them above my head awkwardly, his face dipping down to my chest. So Abby is safe? What will happen with Cade's pack, or what's left of them? And why is Cassandra in the basement still? Shouldn't she be dead? Kyson doesn't bother answering, just nips at my flesh. That's it? That's all you have to say? I ask angrily. Is the only answer I receive, which pisses me off. Kyson, stop. I snap at him as he pushes his knee between my legs. He growls, rolling off me and sitting up on his elbow while still holding my wrists in his hand. Everything is fine, I sorted it. We also have a lead on the rogues. Which is where I am going today, he tells me. It is nothing you need to worry about, he tells me. Nothing to worry about? I just got whipped, and your men were knocked out, but I don't need to worry. I ask incredulously. I said it is sorted, didn't I? Kyson asks. That doesn't mean I don't have questions, I retort. I have so many questions, like where all the Landeena people came from and why I didn't know there were so many left from my parents' kingdom. Why was the council freaked out at the mention of who I was? Also, why did Kyson never tell them who I am? It was clear that besides Cassandra, none of them knew I was Azalea, the missing Landeena princess. Kyson growls, leaning down to peck my lips. I meant what I said, you don't have to worry, I growl at him, trying to pull my hands from his grip. His grip tightens and he stares down at me. Well, aren't you in a lovely mood this morning? He says, leaning down and nipping at my lips. I wouldn't be in a bad mood if he would answer instead of keeping secrets from me. Yes, because you aren't answering my questions. Instead, you are trying to trap me, now stop it. And let me go. I need to pee, I snap at him. Kyson presses his lips in a line and I can feel his anger at me denying him, but he reluctantly lets me go. I quickly rush off to the bathroom. When I come back out, I find Kyson pulling on some clothes. He does the zip up on his jeans before pulling on a button-down shirt. I grab some clothes, a black blouse and dark blue jeans. You're not coming with me, he says, looking over at me while buttoning up his shirt. Of course not, I am supposed to be seen and not heard, right? Listen but don't ask questions. Sit and rot in the castle, waiting in the dark for you to feed me any minuscule piece of information, I snarl at him. Azalea, knock it off, he says, looking at me with darkened eyes. I'm coming with you, I tell him. No, you are staying here. Damien, Gannon, and I are only going for a few hours, so spend time with Abby, he says, but I ignore him instead, pulling some socks on and reaching for my shoes. He snatches them off me, suddenly becoming angry. I said you're staying here. Kyson snaps. I purse my lips, fighting back tears. Why is it that every time I ask a question, he avoids answering or dismisses me? Kyson sighs when I sit back on the bed. He walks over and stops next to me, crouching down in front of me and placing his hands on my knees. I need to go check out Cade's pack for information regarding the missing rogues, those women we found, Abby identified from her time there. When I get back you can ask your questions. But will you answer them? I ask. He drops his head. There are some things that are safer if you don't know. I tell him and his grip on my knees tightens. He clenches his jaw and presses his lips in a line. Why did the council freak out when they heard who I was? I ask, and he looks at me. When I get back, not now. I am busy, and I don't want to argue. I nearly just lost you, for goodness sake, let me sort some things out, and then when it's safe, I will explain. I shake my head and chew the inside of my lip. You're the king, you're always busy. Yet not too busy when you want something. I snap at him. Azalea, enough. We will talk when I get back, he says, standing up and kissing my forehead. Kyson then walks out. Abby, the weight of responsibility churns in my stomach like a storm as I watch Ganon stir from his makeshift bed. With each groan or snore that escapes his lips, the reality of Cassandra's precarious fate bears down on me. His body sits up from the couch with a series of pops and cracks as he stretches. I'd offered many times to trade places with him, to take the couch so he could sleep in comfort, but Ganon is as stubborn as he is protective. He stretches, long limbs extending until his back issues a loud crack, the sound echoing off the walls and pricking at my conscience. Guilt gnaws at me, adding to the queasiness that refuses to abate. Despite the turmoil inside me, my hands move with purpose, setting out his clothes on the bed. Meanwhile, I pull on my uniform when I notice him watching me. My fingers brush over the fabric, smoothing out invisible creases, while my other senses remain acutely aware of his presence in the room, studying me. As Ganon's gaze finally finds me, I feel the weight of his stare, heavy and searching, and brace myself for the conversation that would inevitably follow. The fabric of the servant's uniform rustles softly as I adjust its fit, the black skivvy beneath it peeking through the gap at my neckline, a feeble attempt to conceal the jagged scars marring my shoulder and my old mate mark. My fingers linger for a moment, pressing down the material in a fruitless effort to make it cover the scars. Ganon's voice cuts through the quiet like a blade, rough and edged with concern. What are you doing? I glance at him, the intensity of his gaze making me straighten up. I can't sit in this room all day, Ganon. I want to work, I say, my voice steadier than I feel. To waste hours is to let anxiety consume me, and that is the last thing I want to do. My mind can be a dangerous place when left to ponder too long. His approach is swift, a silent predator closing in. Before I can react, his hands are on me, fingers fumbling with the buttons of the dress I had carefully fastened. My heart races, a mix of alarm and irritation surging within me. Instinctively, I slap his hands away, the sound is sharp in the air between us. His touch recedes but the tension remains, Ganon's brow furrows, his lips pulling back in a snarl that didn't completely reach the concern etched deep in his eyes. You want to work? Fine, but not in this uniform. You aren't a servant, he growls, the words rumbling from him like distant thunder. I square my shoulders, feeling the weight of the skivvy under the dress which makes my skin itch. What does it matter if I am a servant or not? Clarice is a servant. Do you think so little of her too? The challenge in my voice is as tangible as the tension that crackles in the air between us. His reaction is immediate, a flash of surprise lighting up his features. Ganon's stance softens ever so slightly, the rigidity in his posture melting away as he grapples with the meaning of my words. Clearly, I had struck a chord, unearthed a sliver of guilt or an unconsidered bias he hadn't been aware of. When he suddenly becomes angry, Ganon's fingers are quick and deft as they reach for the row of buttons on my dress, his movements driven by a blend of frustration and an impulse to protect. The fabric gives way under his touch, slipping free one button at a time as he works with a determination that is both infuriating and confusing for me. Ganon, stop it. I am wearing it. Now leave me be. My voice cuts through the mounting tension. The demand in my tone leaves no room for argument, even from someone as stubborn as Ganon. For a moment, he pauses, his hands stilling mid-motion. His gaze locks onto mine, searching, perhaps for a sign of surrender that he won't find. Finally, his expression shifts into something like resignation, his lips pressing into a thin line of unhappiness. Slowly, his hands rise in a gesture of surrender, hovering uncertainly in the air between us before falling to his sides. The room seems to exhale around us, the atmosphere relaxing ever so slightly. The chill of morning had not yet lifted when I turn from the mirror, abandoning my reflection dressed in the stiff fabric of the servant's uniform. Ganon's brooding presence fills the room like a brewing storm, his disapproval almost palpable as he watches me with an intensity that makes me want to apologize for snapping at him. "You don't have to wear that," he says finally, his voice low and laced with an undercurrent of something I can't quite decipher, concern or command, perhaps both. "I know I don't have to wear it," I tell him. My fingers brush against the crisp material of the dress, the texture foreign yet familiar as it grazes against my skin. "I know," I say, meeting his gaze head-on. I need him to understand that this is about more than clothing. It is about asserting some semblance of normalcy in a life that has become anything but. Ganon holds my stare for a moment longer, his jaw set and lips in a hard line that speaks volumes of his internal struggle not to rip the dress from my body. "Do you? You don't have to be a servant, you don't even have to work if you don't want to," he says, his voice threaded with a barely suppressed frustration. My heart flutters against my ribs, yet I meet his gaze with steady resolve. "Why are you so against this?" The question slips out, not accusatory but laced with genuine curiosity. "Because I don't want you to think you are nothing more than a servant. I don't want you serving me like I am one of your chores," he says. "I'm not," I respond, my voice a whisper of defiance. The defensive bite of my lip betrays my anxiety as his gaze sweeps over the room, taking in the room. He turns abruptly, the muscles in his back rippling as he strides towards the bathroom. The door groans open under the force of his hand, and his growl vibrates through the air, mingling with the lingering scent of disinfectant I had left behind. The sight of the pristine bathroom scrubbed tiles glistening, the mirror free of water spots, and dirty laundry removed from sight seemed to ignite something within him. Ganon's nostrils flare as he inhales deeply, the sharp tang of bleach cutting through the air. His eyes narrow as he turns to look at me. "Really? Then why can't I smell bleach?" he demands, his voice low and vibrating with an undercurrent of anger. The sound echoes off the bathroom tiles. I try to maintain my composure, but his intense gaze is like a weight pressing down on me, demanding an answer. "I want a mate, not a house cleaner," he says, pinning me in place with that intense look, a look that strips away any words I might want to say and sees right to the core of me. I cross my arms across my chest. "And mates do that sort of thing. They clean up after each other." "Geez, Ganon, my dirty washing was in there too, and I don't want one of the other servants cleaning up after me." The words tumble out in a rush. Ganon's brow furrows, the cogs in his mind visibly turning as he considers my argument. He had always been the type to think before he spoke, weighing each word with care like he was afraid of upsetting me, but not today. A deep breath fills his chest, and he runs a hand through his hair, a sign he is searching for a solution other than me being a maid. You could work in the library or the kitchens, or, he starts, halting mid-sentence. His suggestion hangs incomplete in the air. I watch him closely, reading the conflict that dances across his features. He wants to support me, to see me happy, but the thought of me adopting the role of a servant seems to twist his insides. Yet, in his eyes, I glimpse a glimmer of understanding, acknowledgement that perhaps the lines we draw around each other are more confining than protective. The thought of working in the library or the kitchens feels wrong, like trying to fit a square into a circle. The stables, he offers, and I scoff, more to myself than to him. My eyes dart across the room, scheming over the neatly made bed. Ganon, I want to work as a servant. I know what I am doing. Kitchens are full, I continue, each word punctuated by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, and the library? What use would I be when I can't read? Ganon's gaze softens, losing some of its earlier intensity. Well, you can come with me, he finally says, his voice low and even. I am not following you around like a lost puppy. I need to have my own things to do. I don't see what the big deal is, I tell him, walking over and grabbing my flats and socks. I sit on the edge of the bed, bending down to pull my socks on when Ganon snatches them from my hand, kneeling in front of me. Let me, he says, not a command, but not quite a request either. His tone is gentle, but I sigh, allowing it. He lifts my foot, resting it on his thigh. The sock slips over my heel, encasing my foot with a snugness that only his touch could bring. I expelled a heavy breath, a mix of exasperation and something far softer, watching him perform this simple act of care. I bristle at the gesture, yet the warmth of his fingers as they graze my ankle is undeniably soothing. I let out an involuntary chuckle, the sound tinged with both warmth and a hint of irony as I watch him. You know I don't want a servant either, right? I chuckle, the corners of my mouth lifting into a smile despite the fluttering nerves in my stomach. Hey! Ganon pauses, his eyes meet mine with a curious glint as he processes the playful accusation in my tone. Is that why you think I do those things? He chuckles, a low rumble that vibrates through the space between us. His head gives a slight shake, dismissing the idea even as his fingers resume their task, slipping the shoe onto my foot with ease. Here I thought chivalry wasn't dead. Apparently it is just non-existent, Ganon laughs, lifting my other foot to put the sock on. He kisses my foot. I shrug. Abby, Ganon begins, his voice taking on a softer note as he ties the laces. I do those things because I like doing them for you, he says. And same with me setting your clothes out and cleaning the room, and making our bed. It's our room, I should be able to clean it, I insist. A chuckle rumbles from his chest, the sound rich and warm. Our bed and our room, hey. His voice holds a playful note, my cheeks flush, the heat spreading across my skin as acutely as if he had traced the path with his fingertips. How easily the words had come, claiming his space as mine, intertwining our lives with the simplicity of a sentence. His eyebrows arch in amused inquiry, his hands resuming their journey upwards until they encircled the curve of my hips. With a gentle tug, he drew me closer, the boundary between us blurring as our breaths mingled. If this is our bed, I should be able to sleep in it then, right? The words hang between us, a grin tugging at his lips. I find myself caught in the moment, my worries temporarily shelved. My teeth captured my lower lip, unsure of what to say. Maybe you could sleep in the bed. My voice is barely a whisper. I'm playing, Abby, he says, his voice softer now, closing the distance between us. A quick peck lands on my lips, a fleeting touch that sends an electric jolt through me, igniting my face with a warmth that surely matches the color of a tomato. Gannon reaches for his shirt, pulling it over his head, muscles shifting beneath it. He replaces it with the crisp one I'd laid out. Finished, he cuts through the stillness of the room with a playful twirl of his finger in the air, signaling for privacy. I avert my gaze. The metallic rasp of Gannon's zipper breaks the hush that has settled in the room. I catch a glimpse of annoyance etching his brow as he fumbles with the fastening of his belt, a low groan escaping him, a sound laced with frustration that is uncharacteristic for the usually composed man. What's wrong? I ask, curiosity peeking at his display of irritation. The king wants to leave early. He and Azalea had an argument, he says, each word heavy with a sigh. He comes over and presses his lips to my forehead before gripping my chin, forcing me to look up at him. There is no rush to do anything. And if you want to clean the room, fine. I just don't want you thinking you have to, okay? I nod and he smiles, dipping his face closer to see if I would pull away. When I don't, he presses his lips to mine, softly, and my lips part invitingly. Gannon groans, pulling me closer, his hand going to the back of my head as he tipped my head back, running his tongue across my bottom lip first before his tongue delved between my lips, brushing mine gently. I kiss him back, wanting to let him have this small victory because right now, that is all I could offer him. Abby, the world crumbles around us, but in his arms, I feel untouchable. His hands, calloused from battles unknown to me, move with a tenderness that belies his warrior facade, tracing circles on the back of my neck. The intensity of his kiss speaks of promises and whispers secrets, sending a shiver down my spine as he gently tugs at my bottom lip, a playful nibble that coaxes laughter from deep within me. Safe, I think, the word resonating through every fiber of my being. It is an inexplicable trust, akin to the bond shared with Azalea, my confidant, my rock. Gannon's energy is a raging fire, yet around him, I feel nothing but warmth. He pulls away ever so slightly, a smile playing on his lips, eyes reflecting a quiet storm behind the steel-gray irises. As our laughter subsides, he wraps me in a hug, pulling me into the solid comfort of his chest. I breathe him in. The scent is uniquely his, pine mixed with a hint of spice, an essence of strength and security. His arms are a vice around my petite frame, not constricting but protective, a silent vow of guardianship. I will be back in a few hours, and his voice trails off as the rhythm of our moment together is interrupted by an insistent knock. My gaze lifts to meet his. I find his eyes now clouded with a distant fog rolling over the sharp glint I know so well. Azalea is at the door, he murmurs, and a surge of euphoria overtakes me. I hadn't realized how much I needed her until the possibility of her presence was just inches away. The knock reverberates once more impatiently, and my reaction is instinctual. With an energy that mirrors Gannon's own fiery spirit, I dart to the door, my hands barely cooperate as they fumble with the latch. The door swings open with a hasty creak, and before I can process the moment, I am enveloped in Azalea's embrace. Her arms wrap around me and a sigh escapes her lips, carrying words that are a salve to my fraying nerves. More than my life, she murmurs, her voice a soothing balm that seeps into the very marrow of my bones. More than my life, I whisper back, the echo of our sacred oath lingering in the charged silence that followed. My voice, a mere thread of sound, is as potent as any shout could ever be. Hearing those words, to me, were the most soul-soothing thing. Most don't understand our language, not like we do. Half the time we don't need to speak, just the subtle facial movements, the way we move, it speaks a language only we understand. We read each other's body language as if it were a spoken language. So the crack in her voice tells me she needed the hug just as much as I did. As I reluctantly disentangle from Azalea, a shadow catches my eye. I glance up to find the king's imposing figure stationed against the wall, his presence filling the space. The air seems to grow denser around him, his watchful eyes not on me but fixed intently on Azalea. Ready? His deep voice cuts through the silence, the question directed at Ganon. But his gaze remains locked on Azalea. There is an intensity in his stare that sets my nerves on edge. I watch Azalea's jaw tense, her lips press into a thin line before she attempts to soften the expression, the muscles around her mouth quivering ever so slightly. She draws in a breath through her nose, her chest rising and falling with controlled anger. And the way she sucks in her pursed lip as she tries to stop the action made me realize she is livid about something. The moment stretches taut, the unsaid words hanging heavy between them. Azalea's eyes, usually so warm and open, now mirror the storm clouds gathering in her mind. It is clear that she's holding back what she wants to say. Ganon's voice, a low rumble of assurance, cut through the tension coiling in the air. "Yeah, just need to grab my wallet," he says, his words pulling me from the electric standoff between Azalea and the king. Azalea leans her shoulder against me as she leads me away. Before she even gets 2 meters past Kyson, the harsh intake of breath she lets out tells me she is trying to keep her emotions in check. "Azalea." The king's voice is a whip crack, laced with authority and frustration. His command snakes around us, demanding obedience, demanding acknowledgement. But Azalea, with the will forged in defiance, gives him no attention. She moves past Kyson as if the very air around him holds no sway over her direction. "Where are you going now?" he demands. Azalea's behavior is uncharacteristic. We had grown up in an environment where obedience to orders was central. Yet, there she is, defying expectations, perhaps even searching for the edges of the boundaries that bind her to him. It isn't just any command she is disregarding, it is the king's, her mate, his presence demanding attention, and she refuses to give it. She looks like she is deliberately trying to push his buttons for some reason. "Where are you working today?" "I will come work with you," she offers casually, her tone light as if the air isn't thick with tension from the growls that rumble behind us. I glance over my shoulder, catching sight of the king, his brow furrowed and jaw set tight. It is clear he is not used to such blatant disregard. The coolness of the stone stairs seep through the solace of my shoes as I descend alongside Azalea, our footsteps in sync. The air was thick with the scent of savory spices drifting from the kitchens below. "You haven't answered, Abby. Where are we working today?" Azalea asks. I'm not sure yet, I admit, matching her stride for stride, the uncertainty of my day oddly grounding in the face of her stormy defiance. Azalea, answer me. The king's command booms from above us, echoing off the high walls and vaulted ceilings. On the staircase landing, Dustin and Liam await us, their expressions a study in contrasts. Liam's smile is gentle, a subtle acknowledgement of the tension without adding to the unfolding drama. Beside him, Dustin's raised eyebrow speaks volumes, a silent observer cataloging every detail, perhaps even finding amusement in Azalea's rebellion. Her steps never falter, her chin tilted ever so slightly upward in a silent display of her unshakable will. Kyson's heavy footfalls grow louder as he descends behind us. Forsake Azalea, answer me, he bellows again, the undercurrents of power in his voice unable to sway her resolve. His frustration, a palpable force, surges forth before he reaches out and clasps Azalea's shoulder with a possessive grip. She halts abruptly, her body tensing beneath his touch. Azalea's reaction is swift and feral, a low growl vibrates from her throat, resonating with a challenge that defied her outward calm. I asked you a question. Kyson's voice holds an edge of annoyance. Without missing a beat, Azalea's retort slices through the tension. I asked you one too. I got my answer. Here's yours, she declares, words laced with a mix of defiance and dismissal. She spins on her heel, the fabric of her dress whispering against the stone steps as she continues her descent, tugging me with her. At the bottom of the staircase, she pauses just long enough to shoot Kyson a piercing look. Liam's chuckle slices through the thickening silence, a sharp note of amusement that seems out of place against the backdrop of the king's anger. Trouble in paradise, my king, he says, his voice carrying the smoothness of a smirk I can't see but could very well imagine. I side-eye him briefly, wondering if madness was a trait that ran deep in his bloodline, or if he considered it more of a personal achievement. There is no doubt in my mind about his precarious grip on sanity. Shut up, Liam, Kyson snaps, his anger escalating as Azalea continues to ignore him. It's evident he craves her attention. Liam steps in front of Kyson, halting Azalea with an outstretched hand. Kyson growls, a display of the unspoken pact they share to prioritize her over the king. This loyalty extends even to interactions with Azalea, a fact that surprises me. Ganon swiftly intervenes, placing a calming hand on Kyson's shoulder. Tension fills the air as Kyson glares at Ganon before relenting with a sigh. His gaze shifts to Azalea, who meets his stare with a raised eyebrow. It was a simple question, Azalea. I just wanted to know where you are going, so I can ensure you have proper guards, the king states wearily, pinching the bridge of his nose. Can't know all my secrets now, can you? She retorts before striding away. I follow her closely, pondering if her words relate to Ganon's recent revelations. Where are you going? I inquire as I catch up and link my arm through hers. Wherever you are going, she teases lightly. Her response puzzles me since she rarely ventures anywhere without his say-so. Liam, you're with me and Trey. Ganon is now watching the girls with Dustin, Kyson announces as he descends the steps. The king heads in the opposite direction while Liam grumbles and growls behind us, drawing our attention back. Ganon approaches us with a mischievous grin. Great! See what your defiance gets me, my queen. I have to hang out all day with his ferret face, Liam taunts playfully as Dustin struggles to maintain his composure. Liam. Now. The king's voice booms as he strides away. I'm coming. You royal pain in my fanny, Liam calls out before hurrying after him. Azalea shakes her head at Liam's antics while Dustin resumes his position by her side and Gannon trails along behind us. Abby, the scent of fresh bread and the chorus of clattering utensils welcome us, a stark contrast to the tension I just witnessed between Azalea and Kyson. So what's up with you and the king? I venture, my voice barely rising above the domestic symphony as I glance sideways at her. Her gaze has a faraway quality, one that hints at inner turmoil and whispers conspiracies. Nothing. She flicks a dismissive hand, but her eyes, churning with unsaid emotions, tell a different story. I just think he is hiding stuff. No. I know he is hiding stuff. Her shrug tries to convey indifference, but it is a poor mask for the frustration lacing her tone. I asked him about the council and what happened the other day, and he never answered, she admits, her voice dipping into the well of secrets that seems to pool between them. I watch her closely, noting how her fingers trail along the countertop, skimming over the cool marble as if searching for answers on its smooth surface. There is a determination set in the line of her jaw. Whatever walls the king puts up, I know she will scale them, stone by unforgiving stone. Oliver and Logan were sitting at the bench, chopping pancakes. I watch as Azalea affectionately messes up Oliver's hair before eating a berry he holds up for her. Clarice is hanging washing, Logan tells us. I smile down at them, while Gannon goes over to help Oliver use a butter knife to cut his pancakes up that he had been sawing at. Azalea looks in the fridge before pulling out some orange juice. She grabs some glasses when Dustin clears his throat. She looks at him over the fridge door. Your smoothie, Dustin says. I got juice, she says, holding it up and Dustin points to the blender. Azalea rolls her eyes, walking over to it. She grabs the jug before pouring the contents down the sink. My queen, you know he commanded me to let him know what you are eating. She pours her juice, uncaring. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. Tell him I am happily eating the lies he feeds me, she says, holding up the juice to him before drinking it. She places some cups on the counter in front of the boys with juice and hands me one. She offers one to Gannon and Dustin, but they both shake their heads just as Clarice walks in from out the back. Gannon looks over at her from feeding Oliver some pancake on his little fork, before straightening up when she glares at him. He needs to learn to hold the fork properly himself, Gannon, Clarice says. She clicks her tongue before leaning down and kissing Oliver's little head. He was struggling, Ma. Let me feed him, Gannon says, sending him a wink. Clarice swats Gannon's ass with her tea towel before flicking the kettle on. Have you girls had breakfast? Clarice asks. Yep. I had some home truths for breakfast, Azalea says bitterly, and Clarice gives her a look. And how did they taste? She asks. Bitter, like the king, Azalea mutters, sipping her juice. I snicker. She was indeed in a mood, making me wonder if it might be the pregnancy hormones. You could just make out the slightest bump if you looked hard enough. Her belly no longer looked sucked in from malnourishment, instead her belly was flat with the slightest hint of a bump. It is trippy to see how fast Leakin babies grew. I heard you and the king had an argument, Clarice says. You did? She asks skeptically. Pretty sure everyone heard you both fighting on the stairs before you went to get Abby, Clarice chuckles. Azalea cheeks turn slightly pink. Well, if everyone stopped keeping things that involve me from me, we wouldn't be arguing, she says while looking around at everyone who averts their gaze as she says it. Azalea looks around before biting the corner of her lip. You all know what he is hiding, she states. Clarice busies herself with cleaning the sink. Dustin, meanwhile, finds a spot on the roof to stare at, and Gannon starts shoveling food in Oliver's mouth so fast the kid soon looks like a cartoon chipmunk, cheeks full, chewing as fast as he can before swallowing and opening his mouth again. Azalea growls. Of course everyone knows but us, she says, motioning toward me, and Gannon looks at me, giving a soft shake of his head. That movement does not go unnoticed by her either when her eyes go to mine. I could never lie to her, and the knowing look on her face that I knew had me blurted out like word vomit. Mr. Crux is your illegitimate cousin on your father's side. The council are suspected to be in with the hunters and your blood is special because you can change humans into lichens, I blurt out loud before I can stop myself. Gannon drops the fork he was holding and Dustin and Clarice gape at me while Azalea blinks at me clearly shocked. He then growls before pressing his lips in a line. I had never intentionally lied to her, and I wasn't about to start now. How hard was that? Geez. Azalea says, sipping her juice. The room seems to let out a collective exhale. Wait. Crux is my cousin, she asks like that is the most shocking information. Is that why he freaked out when he learned who I was? She asks. But this time, I can't answer her, so I look at Gannon, who growls again. No. Because of your parents' gifts, they were probably worried you inherited them, Gannon answers and Clarice hangs her head. What sort of gifts? Azalea asks. I am sorry, I can't tell you that. And Abby wasn't even supposed to tell you what she did, he says, shooting me a look. Azalea looks at Dustin for an answer but not even he is willing to speak up about it. She puts her cup down and shakes her head, tears burning her eyes. I wish I knew so I could tell her. I am over this crap. They're supposed to be my family and no one tells me anything about them. Yet all of you had no issues telling me what a mother Marissa was to me, she says storming off out the back door. Gannon and Dustin go after her but she spins around with a furious look on her face. Don't follow me. And don't come near me, she snarls, and I nearly stagger back at the command. Gannon, too, rocks on his heels. She is gone before she even realizes what she had done. None of us thought we could move an inch to go after her. Dustin says. You mind link him? Because until she undoes it, neither of us can go near her, Gannon growls, then rubs a hand down his face. Wait. Even me? I ask, trying to go toward the door she walked out of. However, my feet won't let me go in that direction. At that same moment, Trey walks in completely oblivious to all us frozen. He is cupping his nose that seems to be bleeding and walks over to the sink. I thought you were with the king. Dustin asks. I was. Until Liam called me a ferret face, so I hit him, Trey mumbles. You don't hit crazy, Gannon says, and Trey glares at him before looking around the room after cleaning his dirty face. "Anyway, I was left behind," he says, shaking his head. "Where is the Queen?" he asks, his voice steady but bearing an edge of concern as his gaze darts from one corner of the room to the other, searching for Azalea. Ganon and Dustin exchange a silent communication that speaks volumes, their expressions a mix of resignation and unease. "Did you get hold of the king?" Ganon's voice cuts through the quiet, tension wrapping around each word like barbed wire. Dustin's head gives a slow, deliberate shake, his hands clasped together as though in silent prayer or perhaps to stave off the urge to reach out and throttle something or someone. "He is blocking me out," he finally admits, the weight of those words settling heavily on his shoulders. The atmosphere thickens with implication, and the unspoken truth lies between them as palpable as the scent of iron and antiseptic still lingering on Trey's skin. Trey's hand cuts through the air with an impatient flutter, his eyes seeking answers in the midst of the kitchen's sudden stillness. "Ah, hello? Where is the Queen?" There is a trace of frustration lacing his question this time, as if he expects Azalea to materialize from behind the cabinets or beneath the table. Ganon, who had remained as rigid as the granite countertops, fixes his stormy eyes on a spot on the wall, avoiding Trey's probing gaze. Dustin leans back against the fridge, arms crossed over his chest, the muscles in his jaw working silently. He finally breaks the silence. "She commanded us, and none of us can follow her," he says, his voice flat. Trey's hands drop to his sides, the gesture releasing some of his pent-up energy into the room. The surprise of Dustin's words seemed to anchor him to the spot, and for a moment, the only sound is the faucet dripping steadily in the background, marking the passing seconds of tension within the kitchen walls. Trey's next question hangs heavy in the charged air, his brow furrowed with sudden comprehension. "She figured it out." His voice, a mix of awe and disbelief, echoes my own thoughts. Azalea had indeed. "Where did she go?" he demands, urgency sharpening his tone. The words are barely past his lips when he makes for the door, his movements quick and decisive, like a predator homing in on its escapee prey. Ganon's reaction is visceral, a low growl rumbling from deep within as he turns to follow Trey's gaze, his own instincts flaring at the betrayal of secrets. He moved with a swift grace that belied his size, intercepting Trey just inches from the threshold. His hand clamps down on Trey's arm, halting him mid-stride, an unspoken command in the tension of his grip. The muscles in Trey's arm tense beneath Ganon's hold, the air crackling with a current of challenge and restraint. Their eyes lock, two forces colliding without a word, each man's resolve clear in the stillness that follows. Ganon's grip tightens on Trey's arm, his knuckles widening with the force of his hold. "You aren't trusted to be around her," Ganon states, his voice firm. Trey's face twists into a snarl, shaking off the hold with a jerk of his shoulder. "I am the last person that would hurt her," he spits back at Ganon, defiance flaring bright in his eyes. Trey's shove sends Ganon stumbling back a step, the force behind it betraying the anger and frustration boiling under his skin. A vein throbs at Trey's temple, his jaw set in a hard line. "You're not under the king's oath," Ganon snaps, regaining his balance with an ease. His eyes narrow on Trey, searching for any hint of deceit. Trey stands his ground, his chest heaving slightly. "Yes, not under oath to the king. But to the Landeenas I am," he snarls, his voice a low growl that seems to resonate. Dustin's hands clenched into fists, his knuckles going white with the effort to contain his fury. You were a deek to her when Kyson chucked her to the stables. And always interfering with my shifts, he exclaims. Trey's face hardens, his eyes flashing a shade darker with memories and regrets. I thought she killed my charges. Why? I didn't know she wasn't Marissa's daughter. The king said she was. I believed him. He pauses, his voice dropping to a pained whisper. If someone killed your king, would you like them or their family? His demand hangs in the air, as raw and sharp as an open wound. Dustin turns towards Gannon, searching for some kind of guidance. Gannon only tilts his head to the side, his gaze locked onto Trey, watching him carefully, searching for any deceit. His silent scrutiny seems to probe at the truth of Trey's words, weighing them against every action, every choice they have observed him make. The atmosphere hangs thick with unanswered questions and distrust. Whose charge were you? Gannon finally demands. Trey straightens, his shoulders squaring. His jaw clenches before he replies, his words carrying the gravity of confession. Baby Azalea's. I was the one that reported Marissa. About her getting Azalea to call her mummy, he says, his voice barely above a whisper, yet it carries in the silent kitchen like a shout. The revelation seems to hang in the air, a piece of a puzzle falling into place with an echoing click. Gannon's expression doesn't waver, but there is a flicker in his eyes, a spark of understanding, or perhaps it is the beginning of more doubt. Those reports didn't have your name on them, Gannon states. Trey's face, already edged with lines of barely contained anger and frustration, contort further into a mask of indignation. His fists clench at his sides, knuckles whitening as he fights to control his rising fury. I had to fill out the same paperwork as everyone else did. Trey's voice is ragged, strained with the effort of holding back his emotions. He takes a step forward, his stance wide, ready to defend not just his actions but his loyalty. You all know I come from the Landeena kingdom. I helped search for her for years. Without another word, Trey turns sharply on his heel. The door swings open with a bang, protesting against the abruptness of his exit, and then slams shut. The door trembles in the aftershock of Trey's departure, the silence thickening around us as we try to figure out what just happened. Gannon's jaw tightens as he turns toward Clarice, the lines etched on his brow deepening with concern. Did you know that? He asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Clarice, her hands pause mid-wipe on the already spotless counter, meets Gannon's gaze. She shrugs. I knew he was from the Landeena kingdom, and was in the castle. But I thought he was a guard, she says. Her fingers resume their work, brushing invisible crumbs into her palm, each sweep a methodical attempt to order the chaos that had erupted in her kitchen. Gannon's fists clench at his sides, the veins in his forearms standing out like cords as he turns sharply on his heel. With a purpose that silences any residual murmurs from the other staff present, he makes for the door, his steps heavy and deliberate. I'm finding his documents, he growls over his shoulder, not bothering to glance back at us. He pauses, just before crossing the threshold into the foyer, his profile etched against the dim light filtering through the windows. Mind link the king and get him back here, he says to Dustin. What? Why? I ask. my confusion knitting my brows together. I know Azalea will get in trouble with Kyson for commanding her guard. Because, if Trey is indeed pact oath to the Landeenas, Ganon's voice echoes back to me, that means someone else in the castle was poisoning her. The severity of his words settles in my stomach like lead. All this time, their suspicions were misguided, pointing fingers at the wrong person while the true culprit lurked unnoticed. Which means Azalea is once again in danger. And we have been looking at the wrong person all this time, he finishes before walking out. Azalea, the absence of footsteps trailing mine acts as both a balm and a burden, the silence calming me and allowing me to think clearly. But I also know my taking off will infuriate Kyson, which, as worrisome as that is, I also don't care. Bursting through the heavy doors that lead to the castle gardens, the hinges groan in protest at my haste. A gust of air greets me, cool and crisp, carrying with it the rich scent of earth and blossoming life. It feels akin to taking that initial deep breath after breaking through the water's surface when having nearly drowned, the fresh air filling my lungs and dispelling the stifling atmosphere off. My pace slows as I wander down the gravel path, each stone softly crunching beneath my shoes. I let my fingers trail along the velvety petals of roses as I pass, there blooms a burst of color against the forest backdrop that surrounds this place. Yet even their beauty can't distract from the frustration I feel. Secrets? They were trying to protect me, perhaps, but protection feels too much like caging. Drawing in another deep breath, I exhale slowly, letting the tension seep out of my shoulders. That's when I feel it, the intrusive touch of Kyson's thoughts brushing against my mind as he opens the mind link. Kyson, not now, I snap, clenching my fists as I push back against the mind link. To my surprise, his presence retreats as swiftly as a wave pulling back from the shore. It feels empowering, knowing I can shove him out with such ease when fueled by anger. My gaze drifts across the expanse of green, settling on the fruit trees standing in neat rows, their branches heavy with ripe fruit. There is Peter, working alongside the gardener, reaching up to pluck fruits with practiced ease. As if sensing my presence, Peter glances up, and his face lights up with an excited grin. He waves, his arm cutting through the air with boyish enthusiasm. I return the gesture, feeling a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth despite the turmoil that clouded my thoughts. Hey, he greets, jogging over with an energy that seems to make the very ground beneath him come alive. In a few long strides, he closed the distance between us, enveloping me in a hug that is both unexpected and strangely comforting. Hey, I haven't seen you in days, he says, pulling back just enough to look into my eyes with genuine concern. Want to help pick fruit with us? He asks, and I look around. I want to get as far away from the castle grounds as I am allowed. N.A. Do you want to go for a walk with me? I am hiding from my guards, I chuckle. Peter looks over at the gardener, who shrugs and waves him off. Where do you want to walk? I don't know, I tell him. We could walk by the river. It is pretty high at the moment from the floods upstream coming down it, he offers. Yet, I am not fond of water, I tell him. Oh, well, we could go to the stables. I am supposed to clean out the stables today but got hauled up to help pick dirty fruit. Ah, I think I prefer the river walk to shoveling poop, I tell him, and he chuckles. It's a date then, he says, looping his arm through mine. We head toward the river. Peter is right. The river is quite high and flowing fast. We sit down on the bank for a bit. So, how did you start working here? I ask him. I live with my grandparents, and they used to be servants here and got me the job. Where are your parents? Dad? No idea. My mother dumped me with them when I was born. I see her every now then, but she doesn't really have much to do with me. She prefers to pretend I don't exist. I am her dirty little secret, he tells me. Well, that sounds a bit harsh. And your father? He shrugs. Mum didn't know his name, or so she claims. What does your mother do? I ask him. Works at the grocery store in town. I usually pretend I don't have a mother. It's easier that way. I'm sorry, Peter, that sucks, I tell him. All good. My grandparents are good enough for me, he says, getting to his feet. I'll race you back, he says, offering me his hand. I take it, and he pulls me to my feet. Ah, I probably shouldn't, I tell him. The last thing I need is to fall over or injure myself. Kyson would never let me leave the room and wrap me in bubble wrap if I did. Oh right, that probably isn't queenly, Peter chuckles. No, it's not that, I tell him, my hand going instinctively to my barely there bump. Peter's eyes follow my hand and he gasps. Wait. Are you pregnant? He asks, and my face heats and I nod. Well, come on. Had I known that, I wouldn't have made you trek through the forest, he chuckles. Suddenly, a blur of movement catches my eye, and the crunching of underbrush signals someone nearby. Trey bursts onto the scene, his body propelled by urgency. He skids to a halt mere inches from us. He clutches his knees, panting heavily, as he raises his eyes to mine. There is a flicker of concern in his gaze that has me confused. Trey straightens, his chest heaving from the exertion as he fixes his gaze on me, a blend of relief and mild irritation playing across his features. His eyes search mine for a second. There you are. His voice carries a sharp edge, softened only by the undercurrent of worry that seems to thread through the words. I shuffle my feet, acutely aware of the pulse of life within me, feeling the weight of his unspoken questions. I meet Trey's intense stare with an attempt at casual indifference. Why are you out here? The query hangs between us. We went for a walk, says Peter, the corners of his eyes crinkling with excitement as he looks up at Trey. Trey nods, though his expression remains unreadable, as he takes in Peter before looking back at me. Go on, I will take her back, Trey says, almost daring me to tell him no. He returns his gaze back to Peter for a second. Shouldn't you be in the stables? His gaze holds Peter's just long enough to convey the unvoiced command that lingers beneath the surface. With a playful roll of his eyes, Peter concedes to the silent authority in Trey's look and rushes off back toward the castle. Falling into step beside me, Trey grips my elbow gently, glancing around like he is worried someone or something will jump out at us and attack at any moment. Leaves crunch underfoot as we make our way along the path that will lead us back toward the looming structure that is both my sanctuary and my cage. I can feel the weight of the castle's proximity pressing against me like the air before a storm, oppressive, electric. Trey's voice cut through the silence. You shouldn't wander so far from the castle, my queen. What if something happened? His gaze holds mine, the furrow of his brow and the slight tension in his shoulders suggest he is all too aware of the dangers that lurk beyond the safety of stone walls and iron gates. I halt, turning to face him fully, letting the seriousness of his question settle between us. I have the mind link, I tell him, meeting his protective stance with quiet defiance. My voice is steady, betraying none of the frustration that had driven me to leave in the first place. Trey's expression hardens, the lines of his face etching a map of concern and urgency that makes me nervous. The one you have been blocking for the past hour? The king is on his way home and he is not happy, he says, parting a thick curtain of ferns to clear our path. He's not exactly scolding me, but there is an edge to his voice, a sharpness that spoke of consequences I hadn't fully considered in my bid for fresh air. A heavy sigh escapes me. I follow Trey's broad back as he navigates through the dense underbrush. I almost don't see the fallen log until Trey reaches out, his fingers wrapping around my elbow with practiced care. Instinctively, I place my foot on the mossy wood, preparing to step over. But in that heartbeat before sense could translate into action, the world shifts brutally beneath me. There is no time to brace, no moment to comprehend. The log buckles, crumbling into decay. My foot plunges through the rotted trunk, and a jagged spike of pain lances up my leg as the air is punched from my lungs. The scream that tears from my throat feels distant, disconnected from the agony blossoming across my ankle. Trey's arms are suddenly there, steel bands hauling me up from the wreckage of wood and splinters. I scream again as darkness claws at my vision. Stay with me, Azalea. Trey's voice murmurs. But it is too late. Everything fades as I succumb to oblivion. I have no idea how much time has passed. Eventually, consciousness returns with a rush of pain and disorientation. My back is pressed against something warm and solid, Trey's chest, I realize, as my blurry vision focuses on his face above me. His jaw is set in grim determination as he works to dismantle the log that imprisons my foot, his hands moving deftly despite their size. Stay with me, help is on the way, Trey whispers close to my ear. The urgency in his voice is a sharp contrast to the gentle way he cradles me against him. I can feel the tremor of his efforts reverberate through my body as he pries away splintered wood. A sudden snap echoes through the quiet forest, and a piece of the log comes free. Relief surges briefly, thinking it will all be over soon. But as Trey tugs at my leg, something holds fast. Panic flares in my chest, igniting every nerve ending with fire. Stop! Something is stabbing through my foot, I gasp. My fingers curl around my shin, an instinctive but futile attempt to soothe the sharp agony. Trey's hand stills against the wood, his body tensing when suddenly we hear a noise, thinking it is the guard. The ominous crackle of a twig underfoot shatters the stillness, and with it comes a growl that claws its way through the air. My heart stutters at the sound, every beat a hammer against my ribs. Time warps, stretching each second into an eternity as fear claws at my throat. Trey's form becomes a shield behind me, his warmth a contrast to the chill of dread that frosts my skin. His hand moves over my mouth, pressing firm yet gentle, silencing the scream that threatens to betray our presence. "SHH," he breathes, so close his lips graze my ear. The command simmers with a calm authority, but beneath it lies an undercurrent of tension that mirrors my own alarm. Forest, now! Trey's command ripples through the mind link, a forceful wave that crashes into the consciousness of every guard within reach. His voice full of urgency, I feel rather than see his muscles coil in preparation behind me, his instincts kicking into high gear even as his hand remains clamped over my mouth. A rustle to our left, a softer sound, but no less menacing, whips Trey's head around, and I sense the sudden shift in his focus. The air thickens with tension, an electric charge that raises the fine hairs on the back of my neck. What is it? The words are muffled against his palm, my voice a mere vibration against the pressure of his skin. Then, emerging from the underbrush, a bear cub ambles into view. Its innocent eyes scan the surroundings, unaware of the danger its presence signals. My pulse quickens, each thump echoing the dread welling up inside me. A cub? The implications send a shiver down my spine, a cold dread that seeps into my bones. Mothers are fiercely protective, and this cub's mother would be close, too close. The moment of eerie silence breaks as another growl reverberates through the forest, this one closer, deeper, more terrifying. It's a sound that speaks of raw power and primal instinct. It originates from behind us. Trey's curse slices through the tension like a blade, his body a rigid shield behind me. Don't move. The whisper is barely audible over my thundering heartbeat, a futile attempt to blend with the stillness of the forest. A twig snaps, and my eyes dart to the source. From the corner of my vision, I catch the hulking form of the mother bear. Its massive paws, each one capable of crushing stone, press into the earth. The cub, a little ball of fur with wide, curious eyes, sniffs at the air. It can't understand the danger, it just knows the scent of humans is something new, something interesting. My breath becomes shallow, trying not to stir the surrounding air any more than necessary. But my lungs yearn to gasp for more, my body betraying me with its need to prepare for flight. I dare not move, yet the urge to flee is a living thing within me, clawing at my insides, begging for release. The mother bear, her dark eyes pools of midnight intelligence, continues her approach. She stops a mere few heartbeats away, an imposing wall of muscle and fur. Her nostrils flare as she takes in our scents, and I can see the muscles under her thick coat ripple with restrained power. At least 600 pounds of raw, untamed force stands before us. Time stretches, elongates, becomes an entity of its own as we wait, frozen, locked in a standoff. The silence is deafening, broken only by the distant rush of the river and the pounding of my heart, a desperate drumbeat signaling either survival or doom. The bear's huff is the only warning before it charges, a freight train of animalistic rage barreling toward us. My scream pierces the stillness of the forest as I involuntarily crumple, arms over my head in a feeble attempt at protection. The weighty hand that had been stifling my cries vanishes, and I tumble backward, an awkward twist sending a jolt of agony through my ankle. Pain slivers up from my foot. Pushing up on trembling hands, panic and pain compete for dominance. I catch sight of Trey's transformation. His body expands, contours shifting into the ferocious form of his malt-colored lichen. Fur bristles, muscles bulge, and eyes glow fiercely. He meets the bear's onslaught with a guttural roar, their bodies colliding with brute force. Claws flash, drawing streams of crimson across Trey's face as the bear rears high on its hind legs, swiping at him. With teeth bared, Trey lunges, sinking his claws into the thick fur. The beast's roar vibrates through the air. It fights to regain footing, massive paws slamming down on Trey's chest with such power, I feel the impact in my own bones. Blood mists the air, droplets catching the light. The bear drags Trey away from me, his body a streak of color against the brown and green of the woods. They crash into a tree, the sound a sickening crack that echoes through the forest. As Trey staggers to rise, the bear lunges once more, jaws clamping onto his shoulder. The shaking of its head, merciless and violent, threatened to rend flesh from bone. Trey's groan of pain is almost human, filled with a strength born of both man and beast. I want to help, to scream, to do anything but watch as they both fight their lives. But I am pinned, helpless, my own cry dying in my throat as I see the raw savagery unfold before me. The earth trembles with the force, and I can feel each thunderous impact. My pulse hammers in my ears, nearly drowning the sound of snapping twigs and the hurried footfalls of the approaching guards. Yet despite my own distress, my scream for help is instinctive for Trey's safety as he lies pinned beneath the massive bear. Help him! The cry tears from my throat, raw and desperate. A fleeting glance over my shoulder reveals figures moving through the trees, a blur of motion. But my attention snaps back to the scene before me as Trey issues a guttural groan. Beneath the weight of the beast, Trey seems a figure of both despair and indomitable will. His legs, powerful and tense, draw up beneath the bear, finding leverage where none seemed possible. With a surge of strength, he kicks outwards. The motion sends the bear reeling backward, a hulk of fur and fury momentarily forced to retreat. It lands with an earth-shaking thud, and in that heartbeat of opportunity, Trey pounces. His movements are a blur as he unleashes a barrage of strikes upon the stunned creature. The cub's return catches Trey's attention even mid-assault. His head swivels towards the small form. My breath catches, heart aching for the cub, wondering if Trey will be forced to kill it. But Trey's hands do not seek the cub. Instead, they rain down upon the mother bear once, twice, thrice, each hit punctuated by the thud. The fourth strike comes with a sound that is both sickening and merciful, the dull thud of unconsciousness overtaking the beast as it falls to the earth. Trey stands then, blood paints him, the deep red of his wounds obvious against the mauled hues of his lichen form. The guards arrive, bursting through the underbrush. Their eyes take in the scene, the fallen bear, the whimpering cub clawing at its mother, and Trey, who looks like he bathed in blood. I search their ranks for Gannon and Dustin, but they are absent, their presence replaced by others whose faces blur through the shock and adrenaline. Quickly, someone shouts, urgency laced in every syllable. They know as well as I do that we're running out of time. As for Trey, his gaze is on me again, assessing the damage done, ready to act despite his own grievous injuries. Trey's growl is a guttural warning, reverberating through the clearing as he approaches. He moves with an urgency that contradicts his injuries, his form still imposing despite the blood drenching his fur. The other guards hurry to my side with equal speed. Together, they attack the rotted log that encases my foot. Wood splinters under their combined strength, and the hollow log cracks, piece by piece. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the pungent odor of blood and the decay from the wood. Through my groans of pain, I hear a soft whine that cuts through the chaos. The bear cub, innocent in its confusion, nudges its mother's unresponsive form. Its tiny nose working over her fur, seeking comfort or perhaps an explanation for the unnatural slumber that had claimed her. My gaze lingers on the small creature, so vulnerable without the protection of its parents. It's knocked out, not dead. We need to move quickly, Trey's voice comes to me, low but clear, pulling me back to the present danger. That's why we need to get you out of here before it wakes, he says, gripping my ankle. I swallow. His green eyes stare back at me and I know what he is about to do. Choose my queen, or I will have to kill it, he says, and I look at the cub nuzzling its mother. The other guards are standing around in case it wakes. Do it. I tell him, and he yanks my foot off the huge, thick nail that must have been in the tree when it fell and rotted away. My scream is silent before I pass out. My eyes roll into the back of my head and the last thing I see is Trey shifting back before grabbing me and the feel of the wind as he runs toward the castle. Then I saw nothing but darkness. Kyson, a growl escapes my lips as the driver spins the car around, heading back to the castle. Trey has been in my head the entire time, only for me to learn that Azalea commanded Gannon, Dustin, Clarice, and Abby not to follow her. He keeps telling me that she isn't aware she commanded them. That much I believe. She isn't aware of her alpha voice yet. But leaving the castle while carrying our child is just plain foolish. Liam and Damien stay quiet in the car, knowing anything would set me off. The tires screech as the car pulls into the cobblestone driveway. I can't risk taking Azzy with me with hunters rearing their heads again, yet what we need to do is check out the packs. A letter or my word isn't good enough, and I can't send my men without the risk of endangering them or the pack refusing them entry. Which would either lead to my men killing them or them waiting for me to get there, which in turn would give them a chance to destroy any evidence. Neither is a suitable option, and if the pack has something to hide, they would do anything necessary to hold my men off while they get rid of any evidence that could be used against them. Jumping out of the car, the guards at the front door quickly open the doors before I even reach them, then step out of my way. She is one small girl, and she slipped away from them. Yet how is beyond me. Clarice waits inside the door and scrambles to my side, apologizing as I stalk toward the stairs. Pain rattles through my ankle and foot, so much so that I know she is awake because I feel every time she passes out because the pain ends and her fear of me dissipates. She knows she is in trouble, and it irks me that she's more scared of me than she is of what she did to herself and our baby. Clarice explains what happened, and I am pissed off that the gardener didn't deter her. Everyone here knows she wasn't supposed to step outside these castle doors. Coming to the steps leading to my quarters, Gannon and Dustin stand. They're staring toward the door but unable to move any further. I shove past them, and they hang their heads as I growl. Despite trying to avoid it, I have no choice but to teach her how to use her command to remove them from her order. I can hear Azalea's screams for someone to stop doing whatever they are doing to her. I shove the doors open, and they bounce off the walls with a crack, making the room fall silent. I see Trey leaning over her, and I see red. He only has a pair of shorts on and is covered in blood from head to toe. A furious growl tears out of me, and he moves, stepping aside with his hands up in the air. My body trembles with the urge to shift moments before I do. Azalea throws her arm out. He isn't hurting me, she screams, making me halt. I turned my head to look at her only to see the huge nail protruding from her foot, and a piece of tree attached to it. Blood stains the sheets. Well, he kind of was, but not intentionally, she says. Her hands shake as she tries to grip the huge nail that speared through her foot. What happened? You told me she hurt her foot. Not that she had I kneel next to her and examine it. A 14-inch iron spike in her foot? Yes, I didn't tell you because she wanted me to rip it out before you got here, Trey answers. I look at her and she drops her head, her cheeks flushing. I knew you would be mad, she blurts, her hands trembling where she tries to get a grip on it. How? I ask, trying to figure this out. A fallen tree. She tried to climb over it, but it was hollowed out. She fell through it, and of all the trees, she had to fall into one of the old target trees, Trey answers, and I grip her ankle, examining it. Azalea hisses and grips my wrist feebly when I try to touch the flat end, holding the piece of bark to the bottom of her foot. Don't, she cries. We had to break the tree to get her out. After I ripped her out, I noticed she took part of the tree with her, Trey says with a sigh. I look him over. His mousy brown hair is a mess, and stuck to the skin on his blood-coated face. My eyes move over him, noticing the healing scratches and claw marks covering his body. He did say he got into a fight with a bear, and I purse my lips turning back to her foot. What do you want to do? Trey asks her, and she looks at him, but turning my head, I see Trey is looking at me, waiting for an answer. I guess we're going to have to yank it out, I tell him. It's the only obvious answer. Azalea scrambles back as I pounce on her, and she shrieks. No. Get the doctor, she says, but the doctor is delivering a baby. Trey told me earlier he had sent someone to find him. No. Kyson, I can wait. No. Trey, please don't let him, she screams when I pin her to the bed. Suddenly, I'm thrown off with a roar and being flung into the dresser. Shocked, I shake myself, trying to figure out what happened as I glance around. Dazed, I get to my feet to find Trey has shifted. He curses, shocked, shifting back quickly. He shakes his head and I can see he's shocked at his own actions as he looks at his hands. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, he looks at Azalea while I observe him wondering what is going on. She screamed, I reacted. It's her blood, it's in my system. I'm covered in it. He stutters out while he shakes his head, looking at her. I growl at him, kneeling on the bed and ripping her back to me, then covering her eyes with my hand. Put some pants on. Azalea struggles against me, trying to escape, and I squeeze her even harder, holding her in place. Enough. Stop fighting me. I command her, and she goes slack in my arms. Yet her tears, I can feel pooling in my hands. Trey retrieves some of my shorts and slips them on from the closet, and I remove my hand that was covering her eyes. Damien, get in here now. I order through the mind link before hearing feet on the floor outside. Damien sighs and clicks his tongue as he hurriedly enters, quickly assessing the situation. Azalea whimpers as I position her on the bed, tucking her between my legs. I shrug my suit jacket off, tossing it aside before rolling my shirt sleeves, all while she sits there stuck under my command. Damien looks at her rigidness and his eyes darken before he glares at me. "Is she under command?" he asks. I nod once. The tone of his voice doesn't sit well with me, and the outrage behind it is getting on my nerves. It's one thing commanding her normally, but she is pregnant. Damien snarls at me. She isn't in pain. I'm using the weight of it, and that is it, I tell him, and he shakes his head. She was moving. My actions are justified. What else could he have expected? Trey looks away and swallows, clearly also agreeing with Damien. It pisses me off how they always jump to her defense against me. I pull her against me, waiting for them to move, but they don't. Are you being serious right now? I ask Damien when he doesn't move. He growls but kneels next to the bed. May I? He asks. Yes, she stutters out. See, she's fine, I tell them. She can't move, only speak, he snaps back at me. She kept fighting me. What did you want me to do, have her thrash around while we yank it out? I tell him. She is barely 18, or did you forget that? She has a nail stuck in her foot, and a raging mate. I would be scared too, he snarls back at me. Then, on top of that, you get mad at her for fearing you. What do you expect out of her when your reaction is always anger? He snaps at me. She was reckless, I shake my head. Why am I even bothering to explain myself? Reckless? She went for a walk in the forest. She took someone with her, she never went alone. Do you think she can predict a bear attack? Or a rusty nail going through her foot? You are pissed because she didn't stay in the castle. Locking her away like a caged bird isn't how you get obedience, Kyson. How many times do I need to argue this with you? She isn't going anywhere with your mark on her neck. So settle down. And drop your aura off her. Now. Use the calling to calm her, not your aura. I can feel her confusion at his words, and I sigh, dropping my aura, and her body visibly relaxes and I let my calling slip out and she melts against me. Azalea. Trey whispers before leaning down to grab her ankle to hold it for Damien. Use the calling, close your eyes, he tells her softly, and she turns her face, pressing her ear to the center of my chest, and he looks at me and swallows before looking at Damien. I cradle her head to my chest, stroking her hair and numbing her with the calling. Yet as I watch Trey and Damien figure out the angle to rip it out I wonder what's up with him. He shoves me off her and we suspect him to be the one poisoning her, yet he saves her. He then defends her and I try to rack my brain for an answer. Something is off, and if he didn't poison her, then who did? Damien taps my knee and nods to her foot and I clutch her tighter, my other arm going across her shoulders, and I can hear her breathing. I see their lips counting down, and at 3 I flood her with the calling, almost knocking her out with it as they yank it from her foot. Azalea jerks in my arms but doesn't scream out, and Damien holds it up to examine it. While Trey checks her foot to make sure it's all out. You and I will be having a chat, I mind link Trey. He nods in acknowledgement at my words but doesn't look up, instead retrieves a cloth from the bathroom. So much doesn't add up, and once Azalea is sorted, I'm getting to the bottom of what's going on with Trey. And how he was able to attack me so easily, and also figure out what the heck is going on with all these rumors about him. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.